Hey there. So I wanted to record this specific video for people that haven't quite used Clay yet, or maybe they've dove into it but found a few issues when maybe putting a table together, building a campaign. And the reason I'm making this video today is because of a conversation I had about a week ago with, some guys that are running quite high volume cold email, but weren't using a tool like Clay within their stack because they had like a couple misconceptions. One being that it's a really complicated tool and only, built for the more technical person or someone with technical experience. Number two, that it's really expensive when running high volume cold email due to the credit costs. And then number three, you only really utilize Clay or use Clay when doing AI personalization. I kind of wanted to show just one use case of Clay that is just dead simple that we use probably on a daily or weekly basis with our current customers, that gets great results every time and doesn't use any credits, is super simple to set up, really intuitive as well if you're using other like data tools like Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and doesn't use any AI personalization, whilst it does use some AI to get a very targeted list. So just going to jump right into that now. Cool, so we're inside Clay, and just to briefly touch on some of the features for those that haven't used the tool before, it's pretty intuitive when you jump right in. You've got really specific folders or workbooks, Clay tables essentially you're working on, and then you've got a range of like quick start options. I always tend to click new, create a new workbook and start from ground zero. Then on the left hand side here you've got find people, companies, jobs, local, and import from a CSV. Then you've got things like blank table or specific templates that Clay has pre-built. And then you've got signals. So I don't tend to use the signals just because of the credit cost. It does cost about a credit per row when using signals. So we just either are importing data into Clay, using it to segment, filter, and then push to the other campaigns, or we're building campaigns from scratch within inside of Clay. So we're going to do that now. Just literally go from an understanding of who we want to target to a kind of a finished list, probably within 5 minutes. So dead simple, dead easy, and much faster than if you were using like a couple different tools, Apollo and this tool and that tool, stringing these together. And I'll show you why this is more of an optimal workflow too, rather than going for something like Apollo. So first, when we're building an account list, we always want to start with a companies table or companies list. That's just because we want to make sure that we're actually got a good set of target accounts. I usually find if my base list, like this account list, is off in any way, it runs all the way through up into the find people, even if I do the most insane targeting on the back end. And then I either end up with no leads or I end up with a really poorly targeted campaign. So in this case, we're going to be building a campaign for our client, Helply Groove. You might know them as we're running their outbound, and they're a great customer of ours. So we're going to just jump into here, and we're going to be targeting SaaS companies, B2B SaaS companies. So we have a bunch of filters in here. Again, this kind of UI, UX is fairly intuitive for the person that has messed around with something like Apollo, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you kind of get familiar with all these different kinds of filters, I guess, to build an account list. So just going to keep this super simple, throw one together. I tend to love using description keywords, and the reason being is I'm going to end up again with a much more targeted account list rather than a less targeted one, meaning that my variables are just more controlled when I'm running my campaign at the end of the day. You don't have to do this, it just depends. I tend to do this especially when I'm working with a new client in the beginning and I'm not 100% sure what is going to work. I'll tend to build more targeted lists, and I would recommend the same for you if you haven't run outbound before. We want to include specific things as well. A great idea to exclude two, just because you'll know in your industry when you build a list the types of companies that tend to fall into this list that are not in your target market and not in your ICP. I know it's like development studios, agencies, things like this. So I'm just going to exclude them here at this level. But I will record another video on building really great target lists, but I'll leave that for another day. And then we have got some AI filters here. Haven't used them yet. They are very new. Clay is always releasing new features, which, add to the platform, right? So, I'll update this video, maybe in the description with a new video once I have tested these filters out, but feel free to test them out yourself. Then you can limit the results. I'm going to limit the results to 50 just to keep this list super consolidated, and then I'm going to import to a new table. So all this work we've just done up to this point hasn't cost us a single credit. Usually this would cost like a Sales Navigator subscription, especially getting the data out of Sales Navigator too. It's fairly challenging. Also, this would cost in Apollo, things like this. At this point, at this stage, this data is completely free. So the only other thing that I really want to do here is, I want to know if they're a B2B or B2C company. You've got a few options to go around doing this. I tend to, lean towards the AI option, and, don't be kind of hesitant in using the AI with the prompting. It can be super simple, and it can get as complicated as you want to make it, right? We find that, simple scales. So just keep the AI prompts simple, and the outputs should be 80% there, which is good enough for high volume cold email. So what we wanted to do is we want to categorize. Cool. So we're just going to keep this super simple. I'm going to generate the prompt here. Claire will go away, make the prompt for you, so you don't actually have to do any of that prompt engineering. Claire will just come in and do it for you. It'll even pick the correct model that you would like to use, or it recommends using within the prompt. So here it's picked 4.1 Nano, which is very cheap, very fast ChatGPT model. Another thing here is how to scale Clay without credit. So this is a huge question that I get asked a lot. And look, the easiest way to do it is just bring your own API keys. So you can go into something like OpenAI and you can create a developer account, you can get an API key, and you can attach it here. That's going to cost you a fraction of the cost of what it would cost you in Clay. I think as an agency, sending a lot of cold emails, hundreds of thousands of emails a month, we probably are not spending anywhere more than $400-500 a month on OpenAI, and that's a huge volume of emails. So this might come down to a $20 to $30 expense at some normal email volume. So now we've got a prompt, we want to save and run it. Just want to give you another option here for generating prompts or using prompts, and that's the templates here. We can come into Clay, we can browse some templates, and we can actually just probably search for a B2B, B2C template, and we've got one here that Clay has already built us. So we can decide to build our own and tweak it, or use one of the ones that Clay has already given us. And then we'd be able to run that on 10 rows, 20 rows, 100 rows, however many columns we have. And then pretty much at this point, after these columns have run, we're going to get some categorization, if it's B2B or if it's B2C. Sometimes you're going to get something like this. It just means that something is blank. What you can do here is just come into this and turn off domain. If that's the thing that's blank and you still want it to run on those companies, it'll just turn off the domain, and then it will be able to run on the other columns too. So that's just a quick little tip. From here, all I want to do is come and categorize, filter my Clay table on the category we've decided here. So B2B, B2C category is equal to B2B. We only want to target B2B companies, so that's what we do. So get about 40 companies here. So now I know that all these companies are software companies, they're not agencies or development studios, and they're all B2B. So that's great. All I want to do now is actually find people at these companies. So in this case, I'm going to be doing, find people search within Clay, and I'm going to be looking for founders specifically. So I'm just going to come to the top section here. I'm going to click on find people at these companies. It's going to take me to a page that looks similar to this. All I want to do is put in my job title, keep it simple, do owner, my location, keep it as United States, just make sure everything's good here. And then what it'll do is it will automatically, be using the, specific domains within, your company table. Here, as you can see, it's actually used the wrong column, but it has used the domain, so that's okay. So as long as it's a domain in here or a LinkedIn profile, this should work perfectly fine. And then we can exclude people if we've got a DNC list, a recently prospected list if we need to be. And then we can also filter on other things that LinkedIn gives us, like their past job history, if we were wanting to target first-time founders, things like this, you know. So we can get very creative at this point, but just for the purpose of this video, like I said, we're keeping it super simple. We're going from 0 to 1 with Clay in about 5 minutes. So then we want to import these to a new table. And what this will do is it will just create a new table within our workbook of all the owners at these companies. What's great about using this feature as well is when this loads, is I actually get all my company data alongside my people data. So it hasn't run yet, so I might just want to run a column. And you can see I get all the company data that I found within this, so I can see the category, the domain, the profile, the size, anything I had in this previous table within our people table. That's great if you're wanting to do some more advanced filtering, if you are wanting to add AI personalization. But like I mentioned, for the purpose of this video, we're keeping it simple. So once we've got our people list, all we want to do now is we want to find emails and we want to add them to our Instantly campaign. So super simple. We're going to come into here. We've got a few options to find emails. We can use a single provider, or what we can do is use something called a waterfall. So this is where I think people get, or start spending a significant amount of credits inside of Clay. And that's just because they'll be, trying to find emails at 100,000, or trying to find 100,000 emails, and they're using Clay credits, and obviously you don't have that many Clay credits. So look, that's not going to be great. What I would recommend doing is buying, just one provider. And the provider that I would recommend is called Lead Magic. So if we come into here, we can see Lead Magic is a provider here. And we'd be able to come find work email here. So this would usually cost about Clay credit. But if we use our own Lead Magic API key, it will only cost us, a very small fraction of a penny per valid email found. So it's not even going to charge us for, if it can't find a valid email. And so all we want to do here is, full name domain, make sure that's all correct, and then we want to run. What I like to do is I want to know the MX, I want to know the status too. And so I run on 49 rows. What's great about Lead Magic as well is this will actually validate the email alongside finding the email. So you are kind of doing, you're hitting two birds with one stone essentially. So as we can see, we've got a bunch of valid emails. At the minute, I'm not sending to Microsoft. Feel free to send to Microsoft if your industry is. Each person not doing it, struggling with deliverability there. So I'm just sending to all the ones that do not say Microsoft and that are all valid. All I'd want to do here is potentially create a small formula. Again, this is super intuitive to set up. It's just text-based with the AI. So I just want to come into here and I'd like to type if status is valid and MX put true. And always do an output true. That will give you just a checkbox which will say true or false. And then now essentially what I've got is all our valid emails. Now what we've done is we've built a really target account list. We've found people at those companies. We've found their email addresses and validated them. So the only step now is to add these leads to our campaign. So we'd like to come into Instantly. We want to add the leads to campaign. Again, we just connect Instantly via our API. Just do this. We want to put in our campaign ID. Whatever campaigns you guys are running, you'd add them to there. I'm just going to add them to this campaign here. And what you want to make sure at this stage is that all the variables are correct. So here our company name is incorrect. So we just want to make sure that all the variables are right. And if we're adding custom variables, you can add them here. If you're adding a personalization token, you can add it there. And then again, we just want to come down to the formula. And all we want to do is type in our valid emails is true. And then that will make sure that only the valid emails will get sent to Instantly and the non-valid emails will not. This will keep your bounce rates really low. This will ensure that your deliverability is on point too. Then all we do from here is run the column and we're pretty much finished at this point. We've essentially gone from, literally no data, just an understanding about ICP, to, a successful cold email list. And if you write some great copy to this list that's relevant, that's targeted, this cold email campaign would perform. So when this finished running, this is how that would look. And yeah, that's pretty much it for going from 0 to 1 with Clay in about 5 minutes. It's probably taken a little bit longer than 5, but there was some added explanations there, and I hope that kind of answered some of the questions that you might have had in your head before jumping into a platform like clay.com. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm looking forward to making more videos just like this, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye bye.